Hey everyone, Tim here from Stormhaven Studios. Welcome to the latest episode of Diary of an Indie Game Dev. Today we're going to be talking about price points in MMORPGs. We're going to be talking about uh, subscription fees versus free to play, cash ups, so on and so forth. Before we get started, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and also check the bell icon as well here on YouTube so that you can make sure you get notifications when I've got a new video that goes live. These particular episodes go live twice a month on Sundays, and we're going to be rolling out a new format for the Mondays in MMORPGs series soon, and that'll be going here on YouTube as well. We're going to be doing those live on Monday nights. I think we got one or two more podcast episodes to do before we switch the format up. So don't forget to hit all those buttons and follow, etc. You can also find links below to the Discord community as well as Twitter and Facebook if you prefer to follow along at those outlets. In the meantime, let's dive into today's topic. Give you guys a little bit of background into why we decided to go the way we've done things. And we're going to talk about some other games and how they've done things so you can get a little bit of um, kind of deep look into these other systems and how they've done things. So first and foremost, we're going to talk about price point, and then we're going to talk about subscriptions. So the price point thing, the reason I was inspired to talk about this is I've seen on more than one occasion people who like to make the claim that if it's an independent title, it should not cost as much as a AAA game. And I'm going to cry BS on that right out the gate. Um, Bespoke content, as a general rule, costs far more than commercial content. Um, I may have used this example in a previous episode, but I'm going to use it again for the sake of this particular uh, image so that you guys can understand this a little bit better. But for example, I can go buy a can of Budweiser beer, which is horrible beer. It's like the lowest quality beer in the United States you can purchase. You get a can of that for a few dollars. Um, if I want to go to a microbrewery and have a handcrafted IPA or a chocolate stout or something or a cider, I'm going to pay more along the lines of say $8 to $10 for that glass of beer. So I'm going to be spending 2 to 3 times more for a handcrafted bespoke um, beer than I would for a commercially produced beer. So that's the easiest example I can give you that it doesn't always come down to whether something is independent or AAA, or commercial, if you would. The price is the price. And whether or not you get the value out of that is something that has nothing to do with whether or not the company is an independent company or a AAA company. I've often said that in many cases, for example, I'll spend $60 on a AAA game. I'm going to use Destiny as a good example. Also Anthem. Anthem I got more, but Destiny, for example, the very first Destiny that came out, my brother and I bought that game, um, played it, and I got a whopping 12 hours. Think about that for a minute. A whopping 12 hours of gameplay out of that particular game. And when I say gameplay, I mean the single player storyline or the storyline that I was pursuing with my brother. And we're not talking about the multiplayer aspect of that title whatsoever. We're talking about the core storyline. Uh, Around 12 hours. So I got 12 hours of entertainment for $60. Meanwhile, I can say, for example, trying to think what the name of it is real quick. I'm going to move this box over and look at my screen because I have it installed. I just don't remember the name. Pathfinder Kingmaker. Independent title, which I did not pay $60 for. I paid significantly less on GOG. I got easily 120 hours out of that game for about half the price is what I paid for that particular title. I think it was even less than that because I believe I bought it on um, discount. But off the top of my head, it was around $25, $30. Um, so I got easily 10 times the amount of gameplay from an independently produced RPG than I got from a AAA RPG slash shooter that charged me $60. So I know a lot of people can say that, well, I've played a lot of crappy independent games that weren't worth the $40. You can use the same argument for AAA games. I have played a lot, and I mean a lot of AAA titles over the years that were not worth the $60 for me, just because I didn't get enough entertainment out of it. If I'm going to be paying, this is a personal thing only, but the way I look at it is if I'm going to be paying $60 for something, then I need to be getting at least 40 hours of gameplay out of that. 60 would be better, but 40 to 60 hours of gameplay for me gives me the justification to spend that. And I will say this from an MMORPG standpoint, there has been no MMORPG in the history of me playing these games as a career and a hobby. I've never gotten less than hundreds of hours of gameplay out of MMORPGs, whether they're free to play or whether it's just the box price or whether it's a subscription based model. The price is the price. It doesn't matter if you're talking about food, it doesn't matter if you're talking about a book, it doesn't matter if you're talking about a video game. Whether or not a company is independent should have absolutely nothing to do with what they're pricing their title out at. And I can tell you that we are going to be pricing our game in the same ballpark as AAA titles. We had a big debate with people a couple of years ago over on mmorpg.com. There was a subsection of their community who refused to pay more than $30 to $40 for anything if it's coming from an independent studio because they don't believe that they're going to get their money's worth. And to me, that's malarkey. We are going to be delivering a game that has hundreds, if not thousands, of hours of gameplay at launch. And that is definitely worth a AAA price tag. That is definitely worth a, you know, $50, $60 price tag. We're not finalized on what we're going to be charging yet, but we're leaning towards $60. And we may do 50 for future updates for expansions and the like $49.99. But the launch title will probably be in that, not probably, it will definitely be in the $50 to $60 price range. Because our game is a high quality game. And it doesn't matter that we're an independent studio. We are creating something that has a significant amount of value. People are getting their money's worth out of it, and therefore it's going to have an associated price tag. Now, early on, I know there were some discussions from some team members who are no longer with us, but there were some discussions in the early days and early, like 2014, about whether or not we should do something. I believe the example that was given, I don't have it up in front of me right now, but RuneScape, I believe, had like a $5 monthly subscription with like a $10 or $15, or maybe it's free to play now, but it was a very low monthly fee, which segues me into the next point of discussion, which is the monthly fee. And I am of the, so let me talk about inflation for a minute and talk about cost of living, wages, so on and so forth. And I'm going to pull this up so I don't misquote myself. Let's see, minimum wage in 1999. Minimum wage in 1999 was $5.15 per hour. And here we are 20 years later, minimum wage on a federal level, well, it's different by state. I believe it's $15 an hour. Well, I think that just depends on the state, though. It's on a federal level, it hasn't been set at that high. But $5 an hour, and I can go, looking down at on a state-by-state basis as of July 1st, 2019. We've got the federal minimum wage is $7.25, right? But many states have, like Alaska's $9.84, Arizona's $10.50, California's 11 or 12 as of 2019. Washington D.C. is 14 an hour, so on and so forth. Most states are paying beyond the federal minimum, but the point is that the minimum wage has gone up since 1999. Concurrently, the cost of living has gone up. I can remember being able to get into the movies for $2, $3 back in 1999. Now it costs me anywhere from $8 to $10 just to get a ticket. Um, I could look at gas. When I first started driving in '96, I was paying 89 cents a gallon for gas. By 1999, I believe I was paying around $1.25 per gallon of gas, and now it just randomly fluctuates. It could be $3 to $4 per gallon depending on where you live. The point I'm getting at is that in the 20 years since 1999, federal minimum wage has gone up, the cost of living has gone up, the cost of everything has gone up, and yet the cost of a monthly subscription has remained somewhat standard around $15 a month. Now, we're going to pull up this. So, um, looking at the fact that cost of living has gone up, minimum wage has gone up, wages have gone up as a general rule, everything having gone up accordingly, I am definitely of the mind that a monthly subscription should be more than the $15 that have been the standard for the past 20 years, especially if you're going to be providing a service to players that goes above and beyond what I would consider just to be the general maintenance of an MMORPG. So if you can look at a game like, say, World of Warcraft, which I'm playing right now on Classic, there is no in-game GM presence in the sense that there's no live events being hosted. I haven't seen GMs running around. There's nothing there except for the servers themselves and the static content that players are playing through. And the monthly subscription that we're paying is to keep the servers running as well as to pay the developers to continue ongoing development of that game. But we're not paying for live services. So what if you have a game where you're having live services? For example, GM events. So if you go back in the day, EverQuest 1 used to have in-game GM events, and GMs would actually come in and host these live events. World of Warcraft also had these in the early days as well. And eventually, EverQuest spun off what was called the EverQuest Legends servers, which were around for a few years, but instead of the $15 a month price point, they were $39.95. So they were $40 a month for the price point. That is a significant jump from the traditional $15 a month that people were paying. Or if you were paying, 12 minutes at a time, you could get your subscription down to like $10 or whatever. What were you getting for that $40 a month? You were getting a completely different level of service. There was a variety of live events being hosted. Basically, you were having in-game GMs, game masters, who were running in-game roleplay sessions like you were sitting on a play tabletop with someone, but in a digital space. There was also some unique and pretty amazing equipment that you could get on the Legend server, which then filtered down to the live servers. So it was a great way for players who are paying this premium service to help kind of create some of the items and their uniqueness, which would then be passed down to the general server base. And $40 a month might seem like a lot of money, but what you're paying for is you're paying for the wages of the individuals who are on staff to run those servers, and not run the servers per se, but to be in game doing live events with the community. And in my mind, that is something that is worth extra money. It should be worth extra money. The question is, what are people willing to pay? And from our perspective, we're definitely going to be polling the community the closer we get to launch to see what people think is going to be a fair price point. But what we won't do is we won't be bullied into having something that's ridiculously cheap just for the sake of getting as many people in as possible. We are not a commercial. We are not Budweiser. We are not a commercial beer. We are a bespoke service. We are a high fantasy MMORPG, and if you've gone back and watched some of the Mondays and MMORPG episodes that we did a couple of years ago, one of the big focal points for us is live services, running live events, having these quarterly events that happen where we're coming in and playing with the players and actually taking control of NPCs and creating these live events that players can interact with above and beyond the static content that has been created prior to the launch of the game that players can just play through at their own leisure. And in order for us to staff the people who are going to be running these live service events, there needs to be some sort of a premium that is paid by players to access that. Now, we may get to the point where, as we get closer to launch, we may find that players don't really care about that. We may find that the majority of the people who are going to be playing our game don't care about the live services. And if they don't, we might not have them. But if the majority of people do want us to have them, there needs to be an understanding that there will be a premium associated with that. It won't be something that we include just as a default because it doesn't make any financial sense for us to do it that way. The monthly subscription that people traditionally pay, that $15 a month, goes towards the maintenance of the servers, and the camera's going to focus there, I apologize, as well as the salaries of the individuals who are developing content for Volume 2, as well as the overall day-to-day bug fixing and everything else to keep the games going, to keep the game going. But going above and beyond and doing roleplay content and live, lots of live events where we're coming in and changing things on a regular basis, that requires people to be, we either need additional staff or we need people who are working additional time, working crunch, an evil word, to make those things happen. And as a result, people need to be compensated. If I'm having to pay employees overtime to create additional content above and beyond what a traditional MMORPG would provide, then someone has to be paying the bill for the overtime. It's not me. It's that money has to come from somewhere. This is where premium services come in. This is also for any of you who have ever worked in a freelancing capacity. When you're working as an artist or a writer or photographer or whatever, there are your base services that you charge whatever per hour or whatever, however it is that you charge. But then if someone wants express, if they want something done on the double, or if they want you to work a holiday, or if they want you to work a weekend, or they want you to work, an extra 10 hours in a week to get something done ahead of schedule or on schedule or because things have changed, that money comes from somewhere. People are paid double, they're paid time and a half, sometimes they're paid triple. I remember one time when I still had my construction company, we got contracted to do a cafeteria in Denver, Colorado, and it was for an active investment firm, and they were operating during the daytime hours. So the only way that we could go in and work was to come in and work nights. From remember clock, it was like 10 o'clock at night until about 4 o'clock in the morning. Or 6 o'clock, something like that. It was a overnight thing, and we spent about 6 weeks. And as a result, the contract stipulated that we got paid triple what we would traditionally charge to work on that because we were requiring our employees to switch their schedules up and have to work night shifts. So there was money in that for us to do that. So these are things that people need to think about when they're looking at paying a monthly subscription for a game. If you're only willing to pay $5 or $10 a month to play a game, then you should expect nothing more than the bare minimum. But if you're going to expect premium services, then you need to be willing to pay for those premium services with an additional monthly fee, which comes back to, is $15 a month a fair price point? And as I stated at the beginning of this, I don't really think it is, because just as much as the cost of living has gone up, wages have gone up, everything has gone up. Services, many services have also gone up. Like I said, I used to pay, dollar and a quarter for gas, and now I pay 3 times that. You can also look at any type of service. Used to be able to go to the dentist for $40, and now it's $120. You used to be able to go get your oil changed for $19.99 at Walmart, and now it's $40, $50. As the cost of living goes up, the cost of services goes up. And an MMORPG is a game as a service. It is a live service. It is something that is continually ongoing, and as such, there needs to be an associated fee to go into that. So I don't know. I would love to hear your thoughts. Obviously, we're going to be running polls on this the closer we get to launch to determine what kind of a price point exactly that we're shooting for. But my gut reaction is that I don't feel that we should only charge $15 a month. My gut reaction is that we should charge $20 to $25 a month because we are a premium service game. We are not running the bare minimum. We are wanting to include live services. We're wanting to include live events. We're wanting to include GM staff. Those GM staff need to be paid for their time, and that money has to come from somewhere. But again, it's up to the community. You see a lot of people out there who don't have a lot of money in the way of financing, and they're already paying for a Netflix subscription, and they're already paying for a Hulu subscription, and now we've got all these other things that are coming out. We've got, Amazon has their TV service, HBO's got their streaming service, Disney's launching their streaming service, you've got CBS All Access. There's all these different platforms that are coming out, and all of them require you to pay, $10 to $15 a month roughly. You can also look at, Xbox Live. You can look at PlayStation Live. I think I'm paying I don't remember what I pay. I pay annually. It's like $60 a year or something. It's not that expensive at all to play that, to use the PlayStation uh, Live service. Um, so yeah, pricing points. Just because a game is independent doesn't mean that it shouldn't be priced the same as a AAA title, because a game is a game and the price is the price. And monthly subscriptions should go up accordingly with cost of living and cost of services that have also gone up around the world, unless we're speaking of just bare minimum services. So if you're just a game that's just running a basic server, maybe you only need to charge $10 a month because you're not actively doing anything with the players on a regular basis. But we are planning on doing things a little differently with live events and the like. So we will be determining the price point later on in the future. So I would love to hear your thoughts on what do you think is a fair price point and why. And it shouldn't have anything to do, and I need to preface this by saying that everyone has different financial situations. So you can't judge what a product should cost based on what you have available as disposable income. Instead, you have to look at what is being provided, what is the service that is being provided, what are the industry standards, um, and what else are you doing above and beyond to provide an excellent service. This goes back to the craft beer versus commercial beer component. Budweiser is producing mass quantities of beer, and they can afford to sell it for a cheaper price because it is a low quality, watered down product. 3-2 beer. Whereas if you get a 18% IPA, which is ridiculously high, by the way. But let's say you get an 8 to 10% IPA that's been handcrafted, brewed by someone in their home, in the microbrewery, whatever, that costs $10 to $12 for a glass. Hope you can understand that analogy and why that bespoke piece of content, or bespoke beer, costs more than the commercial stuff. So, thoughts, price points, etc. from you guys. I'd love to hear it. Um, this is going to be a shorter episode today. I also want to let people know that moving forward, I'm not going to be doing blog posts associated with these episodes anymore. I'm also not going to be worried about hitting that 30-minute mark. Some episodes are going to be shorter, some episodes are going to be longer. I've got the rest of the year planned out to do these. So at the very least for the rest of 2019, I will be producing this series. I got a lot more stuff that we're going to be talking about. I did a Patreon post was a few weeks ago before I went to Paris on the iterative process of our artists, and I would like to actually dig into that in an episode of this show and actually showcase some of the art that our artists have been working on and some of the behind the scenes sketches and everything else. So stay tuned for that. Also, don't forget, go to the Patreon page, subscribe at whatever level you feel comfortable with. There's a lot of different perks. There was a $10 tier that was associated with the blog posts for the Diary of an Indie Game Dev series, but that's going to be going away moving forward because I'm no longer going to be writing those blog posts, and that just comes down to a time issue. It was taking me anywhere from 6 to 8 hours to create those posts per week, and I'm behind schedule on book content for book content for volume 2, so I have to cut some things out, so I'm going to be cutting that out there. Also, John and I are head deep in um, doing abilities and ability descriptions and stuff for our alpha. So we're doing that. We've got to get quest content ready that we're doing for the upcoming alpha builds moving forward into October and beyond. We're going to start having some new quest content in the game for our closed alpha. So there's a lot of time factors. I've also got, excuse me, a lot of travel. I got to be up. I got to go up to Minneapolis the end of this month, September 27th through the 29th. I'm going to be up in MSP. I'm going up to sign all of the collector's editions of Echoes of the Past, which is book one of the Saga of Lucimia, and we're then going to be shipping out all of the collector's editions with the cloth maps and everything to people. So stay tuned for that. So again, don't forget, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell button. Thanks for following along. Don't forget to subscribe over at the Patreon page, and I'll see you in Discord, or if you want to come join us playing World of Warcraft Classic, we're playing Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays from 8 p.m. Central onwards. And of course, don't forget to pick up a copy of Echoes of the Past if you haven't already. Links are below in the description text. Thanks so much for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts, and I will talk to you in the next episode. Cheers.